Our LCS is Cowabunga Comics, Lake Country, Wisconsin's best pop culture destination for new comics, back issues, gaming, retro video games, vinyl, and figures. Give them a call, 262-569-9999. Check them out online at cowabungacomics.com or follow them on Twitter at Incredicow. They are our LCS, and we utilize their deep discount mail order service to bring Oconomowoc, Wisconsin closer to us. They'll take care of you. Tell them Drew and Kyle sent you. Say hi to Eric and James from us. If you need an LCS, you can't go wrong with Cowabunga Comics.
Aloha! It's Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing filmmaker and comic book creator Josh Hicks. He is here to promote his latest graphic novel, Hotelitor. Did I pronounce that correctly, Josh?
Yes, Hotelitor.
Hotelitor. It's a luxury class defense and hospitality unit. Now, this book is from Graphic Universe, an imprint of Lerner Publishing Group. When this interview airs, the book will already be out in stores. Josh, welcome to the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, thank you. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Oh, thank you very much. Now, Josh, I'm going to briefly go over your some of the work that you've done in the past. Please feel free to correct me, or and just jump in. Hey, and you can explain a little bit more of some of your works, or if something I missed, let me know. So Josh did another original graphic novel called Glorious Wrestling Alliance, Ultimate Championship Edition. So actually, Josh, I'm going to ask you, so what is this? What is this story about?
So Glorious Wrestling Alliance was like my first long comic. So I self-published it for like 4 or 5 years here in the UK, and Graphic Universe picked it up to collect it as a full color, like collected edition. So it's about the backstage goings on at like a very dysfunctional wrestling promotion. So you've got all your wrestlers and the backstage workers all trying to work together to put on a show. It's a bit like the Larry Sanders Show, but with muscles.
Right. And I'm joking on this part, Josh. Does it come with a GW championship belt?
No, but I would love it to. I've looked into. I know if I've got a friend who runs a wrestling promotion here in Wales, where I live, and he sent me his connection for making the belts. So one day I might just pay money to get my own belt made.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be pretty
If you
cool.
do, if that happens, I've either come into some money or I've gone insane.
Yeah. All right. Josh, I'm going to continue on. Josh has also directed an animation short called Spectre of the Bear. Now, that came out in 2023. Now, some of the main voice actors are Craig Roberts. For American Honest, he's known for a role he did in 22 Jump Street. Bill Nye, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly. For American audience, he's the actor who he played Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and he did the voice work in the 2009 Astro Boy. So,
well, I didn't even know he had an Astro Boy connection until you mentioned. That's amazing.
yes, because I remember, and I'm kind of jumping a little bit ahead. I know when you talked to Brad Gullickson of the Comic Books Counseling Couple in his written article, I think you mentioned, I know you mentioned that you have a love for Astro Boy. Is that correct?
Yeah, I love Tezuka. I've not seen the 2009 film, but yeah, I do love Astro Boy. I love a lot of Tezuka stuff. He's like a big influence, or like he's like the god. So
Yes.
yeah, that's cool to find out. Bill did some voice work on Astro Boy. Yeah, so that film was a short film I made here in Wales with another cartoonist, Johan Morris. He makes comics and music, and he wrote the script, and I directed it. And we made it last year, and we've been taking it to film festivals and stuff. I just came back from Germany where we showed it, and I think it's going to play at San Diego Comic Con. They do like an independent film festival alongside SDCC, and it's going to play there this year. So if anyone's at San Diego Comic Con, you can catch Spectre of the Bear somehow.
That's so cool. Thank you very much for for sharing that, Josh. Now, before we begin the interview, I want to give a big shout out to Hannah Bahedri of Superfan Promotions. Hannah, thank you very much for asking us, the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast, to interview Josh, and thank you for the advanced reading copy. I'm going to ask, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. Thanks to Dave as well, David from Superfan, and Megan and Lindsay from Lerner, who were doing all the publicity for the book. They've been really great. I get to chat to people like you, so it's cool.
Oh, thank you very much. All right, listeners, I've got some of my information, as I mentioned already, from the Comic Books Counseling Couple article titled, "If You Ever Want to Punch Your Boss with a Giant Robot Fist." Now that was in their, if I remember, it's their creators corner article that they did, and it was also titled "Hicks on Hotelitor." Now this is dated on April 18th of 2000 of this year, and again it was written by Josh Gullickson. If you get a chance, please check out that great article. Josh and Brad not only talked about the book, but they also talked about their war stories in working in retail.
Yeah, I've got a lot of them.
Oh my God. All right. Josh, where can listeners follow you on social media?
You can follow me at Josh Hicks, all one word, on Twitter and on Instagram.
All right. Now let's just jump right in.
Cool.
We're gonna talk about the Hotelitor. Hopefully I'm pronouncing
Hotelitor.
this
We're
correctly.
almost there. Hotelitor.
Hotelitor.
Yes, perfect.
Hotelitor. Actually, I'm going to ask you the Hotelitor. I'm off the cuff question. How did you come up with this name?
So I drew a giant robot hotel as like an illustration a
Yes.
few years ago. So that was the basis of the starting the book, and I needed a stupid name for it. I just smushed two words together basically. So it's hotel, and this Tor sounded robotic, Gigantor, like
Yeah.
the American, like Tetsugen 28 Go, Gigantor. So I just stuck them together. Now, when I used to do, promotion for Glorious Wrestling Alliance,
Yes.
people would always call it Glorious Wrestling
Mm-hmm.
Unlimited, or they'd call it like Great Wrestling Alliance, Amazing Wrestling. So I've got a knack for names that are really hard to say. But Hotelitor, yes, that was the idea.
Okay. But I'm going to say, but at least it's memorable, because then it's like people go, then they'll go, it's yes, and at least it's a general name. It's not like, oh, it's isn't it that Majinga Z thing, or isn't it they're not gonna start getting it confused with other
Yeah,
those.
there's not going to be another thing called Hotelitor ever. So that's fortunate at least.
All right.
Oh, sorry, hang on.
No, it's all right. Listeners, Josh got, I'm just joking, Josh. He just got buzz. He just got buzz from his boss that's like, hey, where are you, man?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, from Sarah, Grawley, and Steph Purinins, author of Our Super Adventure, they said we had no idea we needed a comic full of giant mech hotels fighting the frustrations of working for terrible managers until now. Hotelitor is one of the funniest sci-fi comics we've ever read, and Josh's cartooning is a delight for the eyes. And Josh, I'm going to add this. I love the colors in this. It's great.
Oh, thank you.
Now, before we start talking about the story, may I ask for the listeners, please talk about your love for manga and the love for these giant Japanese robots. And we're talking from Power Rangers to Shogun Warriors. And Shogun Warriors back in the late 70s was the comic book series that Marvel produced that had featured three of the I want to say at least three of the popular giant Japanese robots, like Raideen the Brave was one of them. I'm blanking on the other two names, but yeah. So
Yeah, I grew up in the 90s.
Hmm.
So Power Rangers was huge to me
Yes.
as a child, and the Megazord specifically was loomed large in my imagination. Uh, so yeah, I love Power Rangers. I loved the other Saban stuff that has not aged that well, but the translations they did of like Masked Rider, they brought Kamen Rider over.
Oh
They
yes, I remember.
took
Yes.
some other stuff to make like Beetleborgs, which really hasn't aged well.
Hmm.
But I loved all that stuff. I just absorbed all of it as a kid.
Hmm.
Um, and that kind of fed in then to making this because I was looking into stuff that came a bit earlier. So I was watching a lot of Ultraman, a lot of like Ultra 7,
Oh my
and a
God.
lot of like
Yes.
the team dynamics in the book were
Yes.
inspired by like the Ultra set, like the Ultra Guard and stuff. I love that
Hmm.
stuff. And also Thunderbirds in the UK is really huge. I loved that as a kid, and that's not a mech thing specifically,
Oh
but
my.
there is some crossover. There's a lot of practical effects,
Yes.
and it's very popular in Japan, I think, because the similarities to like tokusatsu stuff.
Yes.
So a lot of that stuff informed the book. I never have, didn't have Shogun Warrior toys. I don't even know if they existed in the UK properly and under that branding. But I've spent hours like trawling through like old scans of like toy catalogs of the original toys that the Shogun Warriors were
Mhm.
based on, like the Raiden and stuff. I love all that stuff, and certainly like when I was starting to design the like visual language for the book, I was thinking a lot along those lines of big chunky toys, play sets, just real fun tactile stuff that I could kind of bring into the world of the book.
All right. You spoke about Megazord. You still have yours.
No, it would be in my parents' attic. I don't
Mhm.
think it is though. I think they probably gave it away to a cousin or something. So I don't still have it. I don't have any of my old toys. I do have like I've got some prized possessions. I went to Japan for my honeymoon this year, and
Yes.
I got a
Hmm.
giant Ultraman figure based on not the TV Ultraman, but there's a
Hmm.
manga artist called Kazuo Umez
Hmm.
who did The Drifting Classroom and The Cat-Eyed Boy and some crazy horror comics. He did like a rare, hard to find Ultraman manga adaptation in the 70s. So I've got a figure that's based directly on like his design. It's like a slightly unhinged looking Ultraman.
Hmm.
And I look at him every day and it just brings me joy. I love him.
The other thing I have to see. It's what I love about um these Japanese figures is they'll make their superhero line like the Ultraman, Ultra 7, but then it's also and it's great, but sometimes too, but the, they don't make the giant monster villains, or if the monster villains maybe slightly not to scale, you know.
Yeah. I would love, there's some amazing monster designs in
Hmm.
Ultraman and Ultra 7. And like, there's some aliens in our book, in my book.
Yes.
And I did sort of was looking at there's a great concept artist, Tol Narita, who did a lot of the monster designs and the Ultraman designs for Ultraman and Ultra 7. I was looking at a lot of that stuff. But
Hmm.
yes, certainly to have a giant 16-inch version of some of those monsters would be an amazing art piece. I've got a few little guys,
Yes, I know.
but
Yeah.
the designs across all that stuff are so great.
Oh
And I
yes.
just wanted to kind of just try and capture a little bit of that magic, I guess, with the book.
No, but I'm gonna say you did. It
Oh, thank you.
it's yeah. It was like it's just it's really great. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna jump right in because if not, we're gonna be talking about Ultra 7, Ultraman, Power Rangers, and so okay. What is the story about?
So, Hotelitor is a 80-foot tall luxury class defense and hospitality unit, which means that in the future, when the Earth has been decimated by sort of resource hoarding and global warming, we
Hmm.
all live in these sort of floating space colonies.
Hmm.
And Hotelitor is stationed on one of these colonies as a time and space saving mechanism. He is both the colony's defense and the
Hmm.
place where you would stay if you were making a little day trip. Which seems to that's a good design idea in my eyes. But the crisis happens. A mysterious alien being attacks the colony, and transports Hotelitor into space without its crew. So the hotel guests and the staff have to kind of figure out A, how to work this giant robot that they're now in control of, and B, how to get back home before they like strangle each other because of this terrible shared living situation that they're now stuck in.
How did you come up with this story?
So yeah, like I said, I drew a big Hotelitor just as a silly illustration like years ago, and I would look at it in the corner of my office. I had some prints that I would sell at like comic shows, and I had a few
Oh,
left over. So
nice.
yeah, so there's a big like beta version Hotelitor print, and I've got a few still. So I would always look at this one, and I would just kind of have fun imagining stories that would take place around it. Um, and I started wanting to write a little bit about like my early like early
Mhm.
20s work experiences and stuff, and that
Yes.
sort of all dovetailed together really to this
Mhm.
big sci-fi epic about work and
Mhm.
that time of your life, but also giant robots, bad corporations, supersized aliens. It all kind
Mhm.
of gelled together.
I'm going to say, but that's a perfect segue because I'm going to ask you can you please talk about some of your characters in your book, like Now, I think your main character is Anna Greene. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Anna's
Yes.
kind of she's a lot like I was when I was her. She's like a 19-year-old.
Yes.
I don't know if you have it in America. I guess it would be called an internship, but over in the UK, you often do something called work experience, which is less
Okay.
fancy than an internship.
Mhm.
So basically, as like a teenager, you will just get put in a job for like a couple of weeks or a month, and not get paid, but it will contribute. You know, it's supposed to give you some experience, and it'll contribute towards your course or whatever. So
Mhm.
she's stuck on Hotelitor. She's a student. She's been asked to go there. She's not making any money, and she has to kind
Yes.
of do all the odd jobs. And then when crisis hits and Hotelitor finds itself lost in space, she kind of comes into her own and potentially becomes a leader of all these different factions that arise within the hotel. So when I that didn't happen to me, I didn't ever have to deal with a lost in space scenario, but I certainly did a lot of odd jobs, a lot of work experience things. Like I worked on. Do you know the Jersey Shore, the reality TV show?
Mhm.
So there's a bad Welsh version of that. I did like 2 weeks on that as like an unpaid assistant, and it was I shouldn't have done it. It was horrific. I used to work at a game store for quite a
Yes.
while. I was a terrible game store employee. I think they used to track our sales, and I think statistically I was like the worst game store employee in the country. Like there was like record of it, which is nice.
Mhm.
I haven't won an award yet, so that's the closest I've ever come to winning an award. Uh, I've done, warehouse filing, all this sort of stuff. A lot of those little jobs, fed into kind of how I was writing Anna and the people who work alongside her. So,
Mhm.
um, she kind of teams up with a bunch of like low level service workers inside the
Yes.
hotel. So you've got Tori, who's the like a bellhop,
Yes.
kind of not fully based on anyone I really know, but just amalgamations of other people I've worked with. Beth is a receptionist. And
Mhm.
then we've got Rod, who is based on a guy who I actually did know who worked at a hotel while we were that age, you know. So
Mhm.
a lot of the hotel stories are directly from him. He worked at like quite a fancy hotel for
Okay.
years and years, and yeah, so a lot of that stuff, especially the stuff with the pool, kind of bleeds in from
Oh my
real
God.
life.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
um, yeah, and so a lot of it is amalgamations of people or like just the sort of visceral memory of what it was like working in those jobs and being
Mhm.
that young and kind of feeling out of your depth and
Mhm.
stressed and not really knowing what you're going to do with the rest of your life, but having this new like responsibility. But
Yes.
also, there are elements of just like I'm writing this big sci-fi
Mhm.
thing where I get to have fun and do whatever I want. So, I get to bring in. There's a musician in residence who's like an alien, and he starts a kind
Yes.
of cult. There's angry journalists. There's all sorts
Yes.
of things pulling from my interest, things I felt like doing at the time, and also some of this real life stuff. So we've got quite a wide cast of characters, essentially.
And what's great about these cast of characters is that each one of them has their little story arc, you know. that's what I love because
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love working in like ensemble casts.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's hard to balance it so everyone has a little bit. You give everyone a bit of shine, you know.
Yes.
Again, wrestling. I made that wrestling comic. I'm a big wrestling fan. Kind of think of it a little bit like you putting together like a wrestling card, you know, for the
Hmm.
night. You want to make sure everyone gets a chance to show off their special moves, their big thing, you know. And
Yes.
so that was my hope. Give everyone a little bit of chance to get the spotlight.
Because the other thing, before we continue, again, listeners, I mean, I'm not gonna go too much into it, but please read Brad Gullickson's interview with Josh Hicks because they go a little bit more into detail about their work experiences. And some of it was, I have to say, Josh, when I read some of it was pretty wild. Because Josh and like I said, I don't want to get too much into it because I want to keep moving on and talk more, focus more on the book and so forth. But Josh talks about his experience on that sort of that bad reality show of Jersey Shores of because I read what you did. I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe you did,
Yeah,
you had
basically,
to
the
do
long
that.
story short was like they didn't know that they were going to produce as much trash as they did. So when I started working there, my only real job was to like carry these bags of waste around the city and try and sneak it into. They were all the crew was staying in these hotels, and they had like trash compactors in the hotel. So because we couldn't wait for the council to come to collect the trash, I was sent to the hotels with the bin bags on my back, and I would try and sneak them around the security guards and just force them into like the domestic waste. It's probably illegal, highly illegal what we did, but
Yes.
I was a young boy, I didn't know any better, and and I didn't get paid for that. That's astounding thinking back.
Because the other thing too is like because and I'm not gonna spoil anything too much, but it's like you said, it's like poor Anna, she's doing she's literally a jack, almost a jack of all trades. It's like, okay, you have to refill the toilet paper here. Okay, then you got to go help is it Mr. Park in the kitchen? And she's like, it's like, whoa, what? And then she has to go to Robert Gurney's room to fix his TV.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you're in a low level job like that, paradoxically, even though you're getting paid the least or not at all, you do tend to have to do the worst stuff and the biggest like variation of stuff, especially when you're young and you've got no experience. Getting made, that's my main memory of that kind of time of my work. Like I've been lucky, I've been working in comics and animation for like the last 10 years, so I've been quite blessed. But before then, my main memory has just been asked to do things I have no idea what to do and
Yes.
just just trying to not have a breakdown and just do it.
Mhm. One other character I want to talk about, Graham
Yeah,
Small.
so you're right. That last name,
Yes.
Graham, I'm going to say it is Smo. That is legitimately an unpronounceable name. There is no, that's like a made up word. There's no way to say it. That's right.
Okay.
So I think it's Graham Smo, like you said. Yeah. He's the boss. He's like the middle manager, I guess, that's on
Yes.
shift when the crisis happens. So
Hmm.
he's kind of power mad, just at his basic default setting. But when the crisis takes place and they get lost in space, he becomes even more power mad and starts to see it as like an opportunity for him to like rule over his own little kingdom. Which again is not based on any specific person, but certainly you run into these kinds of people when you've done enough jobs.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so he's kind of our villain for at least the first part of the book, and then there's some twists and turns that reveal that maybe there's an even greater force at play. But yeah, I love a character like that. I love a slimy sort of sniveling guy. It's my favorite to
Yes.
write usually, and
It's
it was a great joy to make him, put him in bad situations.
and then the company they all work for is up
It's the
up
Apatus Corporation, yes.
Appetite. Okay. And then
So
they're
they
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so they're like a giant mega corporation, I try to not be too specific in
Oh
terms of
yeah.
basing it on any real companies, but certainly like uh your Amazons or and your whatnots. But also, a Blade Runner style megacorp, like I wanted some sci-fi reference in there, and that felt like a great villain, especially when we're talking in terms of work.
Yes.
That felt like I really needed something to tie it all together. And yeah, so they're our secretive mega corporation that owns the hotel, that also
Hmm.
owns the colonies that the hotel
Hmm.
is stationed on. And as the book develops, we might find they own other things as well that are potentially less um, good.
But I love because I love the in the now correct me if I'm wrong because I'm trying to go by from memory that the first few pages, we start learning a little bit of, you have like a one page where they do those promotional or you see the commercials that they run, and it's like, yes, everybody's happy here. Yes, we can, if you want to stay at one of our robot hotels, come, come and join us. And I love their little tagline, like, it's the little things, and it's like,
Well, yeah, that's my little. I love cutting from that to a picture of a giant robot that's too big. That's a stupid joke. But I also, yeah, that idea of like putting a nice glossy sheen on everything. That's part of that plays into like the design of the robot. Like there's no reason a giant defense robot needs to look cute, like a 70s um, anime character. But it's because they're trying to look nice and like approachable. Um, and the fact that our characters maybe take that robot then and kind of repurpose it as a corporate tool and then turn it against their corporate overlords.
yeah.
I was into that. Yeah, I like that idea. But essentially, yes, everything they do is supposed to be nice and friendly, and potentially there's something less friendly lurking underneath. Classic
Mhm.
sci-fi corporate conspiracy stuff. Again, part of what I love doing in when I do like a long graphic novel type thing is just getting to play in different genres. And
Mhm.
I wanted to try and do as much of the sci-fi action giant robot stuff that I could in this book, because who knows when you're going to get a chance to do it again. So a shadowy mega corporation is
Mhm.
par for the course.
But the other thing also, and this is off the cuff, is the other thing I love about your story is there's also humor in the book too, and I love it. It's great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I kind of only write comedies, I guess, because
Mhm.
I can't not have a. I don't know. I just like to. I'm a people pleaser, I suppose. I want people to have a good time, so I just keep
Mhm.
sticking jokes in there, and hopefully, this book it deals. There's some like commentary, and the Glorious Wrestling Alliance, my previous book, had some sort of introspection, and there were some darker moments. But the
Mhm.
hope with both of them is that they're like a pleasant, joyous read, but
Yes.
you absorb some of the undercurrents along the way. So yes, it was very important to me that it was a fun book, that it kept
Yes.
rolling, that there was,
Hmm.
it was visually as nice as I could make it. Again,
Hmm.
talking about the inspirations, trying to pull some of that magic into because I'm not like a natural action cartoonist. Like, if you ask me to draw something, my natural inclination would just be people talking around a table, But I really wanted to try and expand my palette for this
Hmm.
book. So
Yes.
drawing the big action, trying to make that as fun as possible. The big comedy set pieces, trying to make that as fun as possible. Even the stuff like the diagrams, there's a lot of
Yes.
cutaways of the robot or like
Yes. Hmm.
maps of the environments. I love that stuff, and just trying to give readers like the pleasure of being able to like open the book and dive into the world. Hopefully, it pays off.
It's
Fingers
great.
crossed.
It's great because I remember the first few pages. Um, it'll lead to my next question. That the first I love the first couple pages because you see the huge robot and then you're going to go, this is the command functions, the head, and then in the chest area is the luxury rooms, like the penthouse suites and stuff, and and then you kind of go down, and what's nice is that you also kind of give, like, there's only 40 rooms. There's, I think, max is like 160 occupant, something like that.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
I think there's one, I think I forgot what level is, like, you have, this is where the bar is and this is where the buffet breakfast is,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and like that spread, which is like a cutaway of the. Oh, it's not even a cutaway. It's just a picture of the robot with some sort of icons
Yes.
jumping off it. There's a lot of stuff like that for there's precedent for that sort of thing for like giant robots.
Mhm,
There's a lot of great cutaway illustrations that you can spend hours online just looking
mhm,
at. But I like the idea that, given the premise of the book is that they live and they work in this robot,
mhm,
using those things not only like as a fun visual gag
mhm.
but also as a nice way to like establish environment in like an economic way. Like I'm always looking for ways to like do stuff in comics that you can only do in comics.
Yes,
So getting to do this big spread, which should be fun to read hopefully, but also means as you go forward in the book you actually understand the layout of where these characters are without me having to draw these big establishing shots all the
mhm.
time, because you've seen blueprints, you're constantly being like drip fed little bits of context in terms of how the robot actually works. That's a
Yes,
really good thing that I think comics can do. I work in animation as well, and there's things animation can do that comics can't do. But that's
yes.
one of the things I think comics really shines at, is that sort of like information overload that I really
Mhm.
love to do.
Because this leads into, like you said, the first few pages, it just shows just a robot. There's no cutaway yet. And then, because the other scene I remember, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but after the crisis and after quote unquote 33 days in space, we see the cutaway of the robot and we see, like who's taken over or where and what. Um, Now, was there a specific reason why you gave like each level in the robot different colors? Because I think in the head part, I think like with Anna them, they were blue, with Graham's little, you know, section
Yeah.
was green.
So I was thinking, that was a case of like trying to design as well as I can, essentially. And
Uh-huh,
I like doing things. I think I did this more in this book than I did in my previous work. You get a nice big spread, and then you get some panels that kind of zoom into that area. So I like to color code each area of the spread and then color the relevant panels the same as like a nice
hmm
reading device. And
hmm
then it was just a case of trying to match colors to environments. So don't know tons about color theory, but certainly the more dangerous uh, areas, maybe I colored red. Blue is a nice, like, sort of leadership.
hmm
I think I like a nice neutral. So yeah, it was just a case of going by vibe essentially. But
Yeah.
always with stuff like that is I was trying to come up with like a nice color palette for the book that felt different to the stuff I'd done before,
hmm
and also where possible using color to like aid with story and aid with design rather than just be arbitrary about it. So I'm glad you liked that bit.
It was great though. But you know what I love too was um when we see where Graham is in the robot hotel. I love it where he's literally, you could see like a close-up shot of him, even though it's green, he just looks a little menacing, like, I've got my elite people here, and no matter what it was great,
Oh, thank you.
it was great,
Yeah,
you know.
well, like so Graham, after Hotelitor gets lost in space, Graham goes a bit more power mad than usual, and
Mhm.
the VIPs in the hotel, they kind of curry favor with him. He kind of starts making his own currency and starts charging people to use different elements of the hotel. So green is a good choice for him, I think, because green is like sickness, I guess,
Oh
but
yeah,
also
yes,
money.
yes,
So that's a
yeah.
good, yeah, yeah. He only cares about money and he's
hmm
sick with power. So yeah, green's a good one for him. Yeah, I love drawing anything where a character is really driven just by like the most just pettiness. I love that
Yes.
stuff.
No, but that's what it is. Yes.
Yeah.
But, yes. So, all right. Um, I'm gonna ask you a dumb question. Why did you choose? I know you said that you drew this giant robot hotel in the past, but I'm just a dumb question. Why did you choose to put your characters in a giant Japanese robot? Not it's not a space. Well, it's not sort of. It is sort of, but not your typical Star Trek spaceship or Battlestar Galactica, ship or.
Yeah. So I think, retroactively, I can think about at the time, I think the sort of real answer is that the giant robot came first, and then the story came afterwards. You know, so it
Mm-hmm.
was always going to be a giant robot. I
Mm-hmm.
think why it makes sense might be that again, I wanted to write about work stuff.
Yes.
Anna is the age she's like 19,
Yes.
18. That's the age where I was sort of starting to have some adult responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You're kind of at a crossroads of childhood and your adulthood. And as we spoke about earlier, in my childhood, giant robots did loom large, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So there is something about the fact that this is the place where she is at this crossroads, and that she has the option to kind of, if she works, if she follows her heart, she can kind of take this giant robot and uh, make it into a force for good. You know, she's
Yeah.
in charge of her own destiny a little bit. So I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a metaphor there that I can't really explain, but I think it makes sense. But the real answer is I just really wanted to draw giant robots, and I wanted to tell this story.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. How fun was it to design? Because I know again, I know you mentioned you drew this, Hotelitor, a few years ago. But how fun was it designing the robot? You
Yeah,
know.
so that was a great part of the Like generally, I'll design a little bit before I start a book, but a lot of the time I'm designing on the page. You know, like if a character pops up the first time you
Hmm.
see him, I'm drawing him that time for the first time. Hotelitor, I knew this Hotelitor was going to be a constant throughout the book. I wanted him to look great, it to look
Yes.
great. So, I did do a lot of design stuff beforehand
Uh-huh.
to just get it right. So the original illustration doesn't really look like the Hotelitor that's in the book. It's similar,
Hmm.
but I finessed it for the book, and it was great to just again look at loads of reference images, see what things I wanted to pull from.
Hmm.
I wanted it to be bulky because you have to live inside this thing. So action
Yes.
figures were a great, those chunky metal action
Yes.
figures. Those
Hmm.
are a great look.
Hmm.
Also, I've got to be able to draw it in, hundreds of panels potentially.
Yes.
So it's got to be fun to draw for me
Hmm.
and within my capabilities. It's got like shoulder pads that
Yes. Hmm.
shoot missiles, and
Yes.
they were the hardest thing to draw. I don't know why. There's something about the way that like they work in perspective.
Hmm.
It was just a pain. And I said I'd never do it again. And I'm drawing a new book now, and I've drawn shoulder pads on people. I forgot about it, and yeah, they're still hard to draw. So yeah, that was. But I think it looks cool, so it was worth doing. But again, with this, another cool thing was that it had to work as an environment as well as a character. So
Hmm.
not only did I get to design the actual look, the exterior look. But
Hmm.
before I was writing anything,
Hmm.
planning the floor plan and stuff, that was really fun as well. It was kind of like making a little, again, like making a little playset, like
Yes.
like
Hmm.
a Polly Pocket or a micro machine, like
Oh yeah, the
this
micro
thing you get
machines.
to open up and
Yes.
see this world. Yeah, yeah, that was. So it was like I was getting to do that. It's like an extra job. It was lovely.
When you're drawing Hotelitor,
Hmm.
in your mind, did you kept going, this would be great as like a nice action figure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the dream. One day I would love to.
Hmm.
I would love to, even if it was just to make one as like a
Yes.
museum, like an art show piece. That might happen. There is potentially going to be like some sort of art show thing, and I
Hmm.
would love to just commission, just one. I can do some 3D sculpting. I can do some 3D printing, so I could
Yeah,
make that happen one day. Hopefully, that's the dream. I would love it so much.
that'd be
It's
nice.
that and the wrestling belt. Those are the two
Oh, yeah.
objects I want.
All right. I have to ask this question. On page 4 of the last panel, because listeners, so again, Josh drew, like, he showed the robot. There's no cutaways yet. He'll show, like, where the rooms are, in the rope, on the robot and so forth, like that. Um, but on page 4, the last panel, there's, like, on the bottom of the page, he said it's called additional inventory, and it shows the that it shows that the robot has 2 jet feet, and it shows the feet and so forth, like that. And there's like 4 items, icons, I should say, icons. like, and everything from that to the kitchen. There is like your standard parking symbol. You'll see it everywhere, where you go to hotels, parking lots, and so forth. Just the big P and it, um parking symbol. And I love this. It says parking in rear. I have to ask you this, Josh. Did you have a little giggle when you did that? Because I was like, I saw that.
Yeah, well, I'm so happy you noticed that bit because the book isn't out yet, but I've probably spoken to about 6 people who've read it, spoken in depth, and no one else has noticed that that's a joke. But
Yeah,
it's my favorite thing in the book. Yeah, I
it
just
is.
love to imagine these cars going up his bum.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking of. It was kind of going.
Yeah, I think I added that late. I don't think that was in the original script, but yes, that is my favorite bit because I've got a child's mind.
No, but
So
that
that's I loved it. Yeah, thank you for noticing.
it was because I'm reading that I'm going parking in rear. This is a huge giant robot. And I'm
Well, I mean, again, for the toy, that would be amazing.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm Josh. I'm sorry. I'm kind of laughing right now because I can see where it's like you make that one toy and it's like, can you make that little ramp come down? Well, just make a ramp
Yeah,
come
those
from above, and you could put at least two cars in there.
yeah, a little Hot Wheels set up in there. Yeah, it'd be amazing. Ah, let's do it.
Oh, okay. Um, let's see. Uh, I know you already gave some shout outs to some people who helped you from let's see from Graphic Universe. I'm gonna I'm just and did you give a shout out to who's your editor on this book if you want to
Yeah,
give
so
them
my editor on the book was Greg Hunter,
hmm
who's no longer he's moved on from Graphic Universe now, but
okay.
he edited Glorious Wrestling Alliance and he edited this. So when I brought Glorious Wrestling Alliance to Graphic Universe, Greg found the book essentially. He found the self-published copy, so he kind of brought me in. And there wasn't a giant editing process on that book because I'd already done it. There was just some tweaks. But
hmm
this, Greg worked with me on like the ground floor, so he
hmm
was really a really good collaborator. Had some really good feedback on the script and stuff. And yeah, I love working with Greg. And Mary Ross is the designer at Graphic Universe, and
hmm
she did a great job on like the book design. It comes
hmm
out it'll mostly be available in paperback, but there is like a hardback edition that I think will mostly be in libraries. And
Nice.
they're both really nice objects. I'm really happy with how they've come out, but the hardback especially looks really nice, and that's all down to Mary. And then there's Sean Tullian, who's the new editor over at Graphic
hmm
Universe and at Lerner, and he has been really good, like carrying on since I finished the book. Being in
hmm
touch about getting the book out there and stuff. So yeah, they're a great team to work with. I love working with Graphic Universe.
Because I'm thinking, with the hardback edition, it sounds just better because when you do those, when you open, because there's somewhere it's like it's just to see the cutaway of the robot,
Yeah,
or
it's nice to have it. It's the same. It's essentially the same experience, but the fact that the hardcover is heavier, I think,
yes,
really does something because it does feel more tack. And we've talked about toys a lot. It feels like holding a big chunky action figure
yes.
in your hands.
hmm
So there is a nice element to that.
hmm
Um, but yes, the paperback looks good too. It's all good. But yeah, the hardback's got end papers, which is really fancy. But you can't.
Yes,
Yeah. So I'm glad they did it in both editions.
that's nice. Um, in the opening pages, you mentioned for Rachel. May I ask who is Rachel?
Yes, Rachel is my wife. We got married last year just after I handed in the pages for the book.
hmm
We went to Japan on our honeymoon this year, so that's where these stupid Japanese toys I've been talking about have come from. That trip. She was, and yeah, she's been sort of supporting me throughout all the comic stuff, especially this book, which was a lot of hard work. So yeah, I wanted to give her a little shout out at the front of the book because she deserves it.
That's nice. Thank you very much for sharing that. All right, I'm slowly wrapping things up. What was the most fun or exciting thing that you love working on this graphic novel?
The I think the most fun and exciting thing for me, other than, this is a world that I wanted to play in, so I got to do that. I never thought I would write a big sci-fi thing, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, writing a full script, which I hadn't done for my previous books, writing a
Mm-hmm.
full script at the outset and trying to tightly plot it as if it was like an action movie or a big,
Mm-hmm.
sci-fi ep, making it so there's setup and payoff, and there's things that are seeded early in the book, and
Yes.
getting this pace going. I really like the idea of just trying to make like a plot-driven action story, which
Mm-hmm.
is not something I've done a lot of before. So that feeling that I could, when I was starting to draw it then, and I could see it sort of ticking along, that
Mm-hmm.
felt really good, and that was what I was most excited about, I think.
Okay. All right. Um, Shifting gears. So, when is your next convention or store appearance?
Okay, so depending on when this drops, I will either be at the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, which is on May the 10th and the 11th, or I will have recently have been at the Toronto Comic
It's
Arts
gonna be,
Festival.
yes. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's going to be in the past. And, I will then have done a signing at Gosh Comics on the 14th of May,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm doing with Luke Healy and Will Humberston, which are two other UK creators
Mm-hmm.
who are going to Toronto. Um, they're both, well, Luke's an Irish creator, but Gosh is our kind of the best comic store in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I love that shop. They've really supported the work that I've done, and so I'm really excited to do that. But I've also never been to the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, and I've always wanted to. I've always
Mm-hmm.
heard a lot of good things about the Beguiling as well, the comic shop in Toronto. So I'm really excited to go and do that. It's kind of like a lifelong dream.
Nice. Thank you very much. Okay. Um, Three more questions. Do you have a favorite convention moment as a fan or a creator?
As a fan, well, I do this convention called Thought Bubble in the UK every year. I've done it
Mhm.
pretty much every year since like 2017, aside from the COVID years. Maybe I had a year off, I'm not sure. But I've had a lot of good times there as a fan and as a creator. So like I usually have a table.
Mhm.
I get to hang out with like people I really admire
Mhm.
through Thought Bubble, Katie Skelly, great indie cartoonist,
Mhm.
working out of LA. Got to, become friends with her through Thought Bubble, meet up. Loads of UK creators that I'm still in touch with. Like
Mhm.
Ramsey is a great UK creator that I see every year at Thought Bubble. Um, but also, like my favorite experience was my sister is a skateboarder.
Oh, okay.
She skateboards, so she's got like like Instagram account under her real name with his footage of her skateboarding. And some guy came up to me at this show and was like, "Are you Emily Hicks's brother?" Basically, this guy lives like 100 miles away from either of us, but
Mhm.
had separately followed us for two different. Like he liked comics and he liked skateboarding, and he
Mhm.
realized that we were. He saw that we'd both posted a picture at Christmas dinner together
Oh, that's nice.
or at Christmas. So it blew it blew his mind
Mhm.
that we were related. And then he came up. He waited 8 months, came to ask me about it in a thought bubble. And I think that's the only person who probably likes both of our work. Is the one guy. He's the middle of the Venn diagram. So
Mhm.
finding that one person was amazing. Yeah, that's my favorite thing that's ever happened there.
Oh, that's so cool. All right. Have you and your family been to Hawaii?
No, unfortunately not. I would love to travel to Hawaii though. I'm hopefully, I don't usually leave Europe. I very rarely leave the UK. But
Mhm.
this
Yes.
year, we did the Japan trip that we've talked about. I'm going to
Yes.
Toronto. I went to Germany for the film festival. So,
Mhm.
I'm traveling more. So maybe, it is a possibility that one day I'll be lucky enough to come to Hawaii.
Ah, okay, that'd be cool. All right. Any closing words to our listeners?
Yes, just Hotelitor is available in all good comic shops. I hope check the book out if it sounds like something you'd be into. Hope everyone has a good time reading it, and if you do read it and you've got thoughts, send them over to me. I'd love to have a chat about it. I'll take any and all feedback. Yeah, and just I really love comics. I love
Mm-hmm.
animation as well, but comics is like my first love, really. And this was a
Mm-hmm.
labor of love making this book. So hopefully that is something that people appreciate when they read the book. That
Yes. Mm-hmm.
clearly, I'm just doing this because I love comic books, and it feels nice to be able to put that love out into the world.
Josh, mahalo. Thank you in Hawaiian. Thank you for your time. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to interview you. I wish you all the success with Hotelitor.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. And trust me, I'm sure all over all the years I've been butchering all the Japanese super giant robot
Yeah,
names
it's a
like
badge of honor for a
yeah.
robot to be butchered. So yeah, that's amazing.
So I also want to thank Hannah Superfan Promotion. Again, Hannah, thank you very much for asking us, the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast, to interview Josh. And again, thank you very much for providing me with this advanced reading material. And again, Hannah, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. Thank you very much, Hannah.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you, Hannah.
Now, if you are a new comic book reader, a lifelong comic book reader, and if you love manga and Gundam and these even like the Power Rangers or these giant super robots that fights huge alien monsters, please check out Hotelitor from Graphic Universe. It's an imprint of Lerner Publishing Company. I love this book. It's a great story. Josh, I forgot to mention, I love the manga um art style. It's perfect. It's great. I love it. You
Oh,
know.
thank you so much. Yeah, that's kind of like I draw, for animation as well, I'll draw in different styles for various
Hmm.
things, but a lot of what Hotelitor is kind of my natural drawing style.
Hmm.
But the fight scenes in particular, they're kind of a bit of a, again, like I said before, an artistic stretch for me.
Hmm.
So I looked at a lot of that manga stuff that I really wanted, those clear shapes of like
Hmm.
Go Nagai manga, Shotaro Shinomori,
Hmm.
Tezuka, who we mentioned. And if I got just 1% of that stuff down, I'm very happy. So I'm glad you like the look of it.
It is. I love it. I love it. It's great. And there's a it this is a great story. It's a fun story to read. You know, uh, as Josh mentioned, Anna is sort of like based on when he was younger, trying to, starting off with new jobs, basically starting at entry level jobs. We can all relate to that because it's like, oh my God, it's like, even though it's like, when you start off working, you're doing this, you're doing that, and you're kind of go, but I was supposed to hire to, it's almost like being a
Yeah.
jack of all trades at the beginning until, um, but I also love the character Anna too, because you see her story, you see her grow through the story, and it's great. Um, it's a fun story to read. There's, there is humor in this book, and I love the subtle. There's some parts there's a little subtle humor. I'm not gonna spoil what it is, but there's some parts of it I love. Um, Again, listeners, if you guys get a chance, please check out this book. Again, I love the story. It's a fun story to read. I want to thank Drew, the host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
Aloha.
In a world ravaged by war and chaos, a group of survivors must band together to brave the dangers of a post-apocalyptic landscape. The year is 2000, and the world has been plunged into darkness. The nuclear fires have burned out, leaving behind a wasteland of ruins and radiation. But amidst the rubble and despair, a glimmer of hope still remains. Join Dork Day Afternoon as they face off against marauding gangs, enemy soldiers, and even the harsh elements themselves in the world of Twilight 2000. Will our heroes survive the challenges ahead? Can they keep their own humanity intact? Or will they succumb to the harsh realities of life after the end of the world? 2 past midnight. An actual play podcast by Dork Day Afternoon.